And like vibe designing and vibe coding to me is the closest thing to Flash I have seen in like 2 decades, essentially.
This is Tom Krcha, the CEO of Pencil.
Pencil.dev, and that is called Pencil.
New app called Pencil.
Pencil.dev.
I'm starting to feel like we're now discovering these like new user experiences for interacting with AI that were never seen before, you know, and these cursors and scanning and all of these things are like just the tip of the iceberg, and we'll see a lot more of that. Like Nano Banana or like these image generators generate like great photos, but like what about illustrations? And I think illustrations are going to be huge in the next half of 2026.
Are there specific models that are significantly better than others at design?
I think my favorite is...
I'm just going to ask you a icebreaker question. Back in the day, you were very familiar with Adobe Flash. Do you still know ActionScript?
Yeah, 100%. Like I grew up on Flash. It was like my first sort of break into tech. And I started using Photoshop when I was 7. And then eventually, my parents had a design agency, you know, so I would always like after school hang out there with designers, and they would teach me all sorts of different tools, you know, from Photoshop, Illustrator, Corel Draw at a time, you know, and it was all for print design. And, you know, internet came along in like late 90s, and I got really interested in like more interactive stuff, you know, so I started digging into HTML, and it was like DHTML and all of these things, you know, long time ago, you know, and Flash came along, you know, it was like Flash version 3, and I was like, wow, holy crap, what is this? You know, it's moving, it's animated, it has audio in there and all of these things, you know, and I immediately fell in love with Flash, and started building websites in Flash, and eventually won like an award at this conference in Prague called Junior Internet. And if you ask around, you know, people from Prague about Junior Internet who remember that, it kickstarted a career for many, many folks. And eventually started building, you know, Flash was the only way to stream video online. So I started building video players for all sorts of news outlets and so on. And that was my sort of introduction to Adobe, because we started using a lot of Flash media servers and so on, you know, and Adobe saw that, and eventually they offered me a job to become a Flash evangelist for Adobe. So that's sort of how it all started, you know, and then obviously I started building, you know, design tools and talk at like design conferences and talked to tons of designers and so on. So yeah, that was the origin of my story, really.
So I've also seen a few videos of you doing conferences at game events and stuff. Did you make games when you were at Adobe as well?
Yeah, totally. So Flash was used for a lot of interactive stuff, including gaming, you know. So eventually I became sort of a gaming evangelist at Adobe, and I was helping various companies to bring their apps or games into Flash. So I would go and speak at various gaming conferences as well, and talk to a lot of game developers, and help some of these game developers to port games into Flash, you know. And like famous one is, for instance, Machinarium. That was like one of the first games that they ported it from Flash into iOS through Adobe Air, you know, and it was like one of the first breakthrough games of Flash running on iPad, and it was like a big moment. It became like a game of the month, you know, or app of the month on App Store, and became incredibly popular and so on, you know. So yeah.
Were you also part of the Newgrounds community back in the day?
No, what is it?
Newgrounds was like the website where all the Flash games and Flash movies were listed. It was like before YouTube, very popular.
I thought that was Miniclip.
Nice. Oh, Miniclip. I remember Miniclip.
Miniclip
sure.
was the one for me.
But I was spending like all my days on favorite website awards, you know, if you guys remember the FWA and so on. But now we're going like really, really far back into the history of internet and interactive web, you know, so yeah.
And I guess this was the early building block of what eventually led to Pencil. But then you also built a kind of script or a tool. I think it's called DrawScript on Illustrator. Can you talk about that?
Totally. DrawScript was like a plugin for Illustrator, and it allowed you to convert drawings into basically JavaScript, and then essentially take that and it would repaint whatever you had in code. So that was the idea.
And so, because I've done a bit of research on your kind of journey into kind of design to code, and I think we're kind of jumping your career, but what made you want to have designs be codified? Like what led to that desire?
Well, there really wasn't any solution for bringing drawings into code, and you basically wanted to have like icons and other things, and this was like, obviously SVG was very limited at the time, and maybe it wasn't even really like supported much, but you wanted to draw certain things on canvas, 2D canvas in HTML, and this was like one of the things that would allow you to do that, because like once you had it in code, you could make it interactive, so you could turn it into games, and so on, and work with it. You can make it move, make it available for animations and other things. So yeah, this was that sort of door to that.
While you were at Adobe, you also worked on Adobe XD. What was the original vision for it, and was it like a replacement for Dreamweaver, or how did XD came about?
So it was about a time where like there was Sketch, Photoshop was doing also being used a lot for websites and so on. But we realized that it would be great to have just like a completely fresh offering that was just designed for this specific purpose, designing websites and apps. Especially it was the era where like everybody was building mobile apps and so on. So we really wanted to take a fresh look on all of these things and really come from like first principles, like what would it mean, if we could start completely from scratch, So we put together these like principles that it should be like lightweight and approachable and fast and all of these things, and that you can like draw like tons of artboards, and like in Photoshop you could have just like one thing, right, in the beginning, and that would be it. But like what you really wanted was like show the whole flow, think across all of these different screens, and so on. And Adobe XD was the tool that would allow you to do that. It was designed for that specific purpose. There was also prototyping as part of that, so you could connect these screens together, at scrollable areas, and so on. So yeah.
I'm going to jump a bit here and just go straight to Pencil, because I think it's nice to see your journey from Adobe to building this thing, which is kind of like XD, but it uses a lot of AI. And so at what point did you start to realize the power of LLMs and agents?
So there were a couple startups in between, but eventually after all of that, I sort of started digging into Cursor and Claude Code and all of these things, as everybody else, in the world, and was actually building something else, but realized that, while I was in Cursor, I was like, oh my gosh, like how do I like tell the LLM that this button should look like this that I have in my head? Or like there is a navigation bar and it should be like sticky on the top, and in the navigation bar there are these buttons and so on. I felt like I was writing essays to LLMs of text and tried to prompt them, to do something I really had in my mind visually. And I looked around and there really wasn't any solution. I looked all around, the VS Code marketplace and other areas, and there really wasn't anything where you can just like simply draw something and tell LLM, do this. And this was like sort of like everybody did MCPs and all of these things, So like the initial idea was really like, I have this JSON format, and LLMs are really good at reading structured data and turning that into any kind of code. So build a prototype, put it out. This was back in May 2025, and it went viral. It got like 1 million views over socials, like 850 on X, and like, I think like 400K on LinkedIn or something like that. And I was like, wow, it seems like this is not just my problem, but other people probably want to do something like that, and they need this helping hand, and nobody was really providing that helping hand of going from like a quick visual into code. And once I was, once it got built, like it gave me all of these other ideas that, for instance, like the other thing that like completely opened in front of me was like, I can actually generate these designs. It's not just for me like to draw something, but I can tell LLM, hey, draw me this, and generate me this and this and that. And that's where like I realized like, wow, we're onto something. We're at the brink of like vibe designing.
Was that demo the design mode for cursor demo? The one that went viral?
Yeah, it was called Design Mode for Cursor. Yeah, and it was basically, and we still have that essentially. It's like it's a canvas within all of the VS Code based IDEs, so Cursor, Windsurf, Anti-Gravity, and so on. And it's basically like a custom editor within your IDE. That's visual, and you can draw whatever you want, and then you can just select something on the canvas, and you can either copy and paste it into chat, then it has a link, or you can just point at it and it knows what you have selected, and it will start basically drawing information out of that and turning that into whatever you want, honestly. Like, it doesn't matter like if it's React or if you use any other library. It's basically this like technology or platform or like framework agnostic representation where you can like quickly ideate, and then turn it into whatever you want,
So does that mean it's using plain CSS, or is it like integrating libraries like Tailwind or Shadcn or something like that?
You can choose whatever you want, honestly. Like under the hood is just a structured JSON that basically defines like the look of whatever you're designing, and then we have some baked-in rules, for conversion into Tailwind, for instance, and so on. But you can write your own set of rules that fit very specifically into your own basically code base. This pen file that we call it lives in your Git repo. So like any engineer and any AI agent has access to that directly, and it can just convert it into whatever you want. So you can write your own set of rules around it and make it like really yours. And I think that's the key point.
The first time I used Pencil, I thought it was really magical. And I'm trying to figure out how it works behind the scenes, like tech-wise. I've seen the JSON file in the PEN file, but I don't know how it's able to translate that into the UI that I can kind of interact with and like drag boxes and pull boxes and change background colors. And then also the agent can understand it and do the exact same thing. So how did you come up with that union between human designing and agent also designing the same file?
Yeah, so it's multiple things, like we really wanted to build this like incredibly familiar environment that you can just pick up from like day one, essentially. From like the first minute you open it, it's like, okay, I can orient myself in this, in this like canvas where I can like zoom in, zoom out, I have all the properties on the side, layers panel on the other side, and just like make it like super familiar. But at the same time, it opened up a lot of these new things that nobody really cracked before, which was like, how do I like chat with the design essentially? And that gave us a bunch of opportunities to innovate, and the latest one that we just showed in that video was like these multiple agents, swarm of agents working on the design in this orchestra, in this concert, and and there is actually, honestly, like there's so much more that can be done. Like every day I'm like discovering new and new things that previously were not possible, just because first, like LLMs are now opening with every new model release, new opportunities to do more. And also we just keep coming up with new ideas as we talk to users and how they interact with things and so on. And now they want to like control it remotely and all sorts of things. It's like, there's like so much more that can be done. It's kind of crazy.
I was curious what model you started on. In terms of when did you realize models could actually be good at design? Because the first few weren't that great, and then I think they sort of focused on actually adding some into the training data.
Yeah, it there is still a gap. I think it's getting better with every model release. I think we started, it was either Sonnet 3.5 or 7, maybe 3.7. And initially, you had to tell it a lot, how things should really look. And as we progressed, we basically are now at this phase where you can just say design a website, and it will probably do a fairly good job. And like the second thing that was like a big switch there as the models and agents frankly evolved was this thing called elicitation, where it like asks you extra questions about like, so what do you actually want? And like it's really similar to like you being a client of an agency, really. Because like the first thing that a designer or a project manager at an agency would do is to have basically an interview with you and try to extract as much as possible out of you so they can build the right thing for you. And we can't expect that. I mean, these LLMs are now like incredibly powerful, but I think this dialogue that's happening right now more and more with the agents, is a huge unlock. Because in the beginning, it was like, design me something. It would design something. It would be like, I actually didn't want this at all. But now through dialogue, it will extract what you actually really want and how you want it. And then it's getting closer and closer to doing the right thing for you. And that's a major difference.
I imagine you've tested a lot of models with Pencil. Are there specific models that are significantly better than others at design?
I think my favorite is Opus 4.6. And I think just like observing like a lot of the folks in the community, that's basically the staple right now, like state of the art for design. It works really, really well. It works really well with structured data as well and with the layout. It makes the least amount of mistakes in things and so on. And for a lot of the other models, we basically have to correct some of the behaviors, and so on. And it's fine, it's just a matter of like discovering these like nuances and making sure that we correct them, or that we tell the agent, hey, you've done this wrong, just like do a one more round, and then it usually like happens. The only challenge with Opus is that it's also fairly slow, although it's like amazing in a way. So like the first time I saw like real magic was when Composer came out from Krcha. And I was like, wow, this is fast. This is like designing as I'm thinking about things. So what I'm hoping to see as we progress is that obviously there's still a gap to get like better in the quality, but I'm really, really hoping that these labs are now going to focus on the speed. And obviously it's kind of happening with Cerebras and Spark model and all of these things. So I'm just like really, really hoping that like the next phase of innovation is going to be focused on speed, because that's going to unlock, you want to stay in flow as a designer. And it's oftentimes more important to do more reps than like getting it right at the first time. Like you want to be involved in that process, and these faster models allow you to do that. And for us, that's also like really important principle when we're building things, to make sure that we keep you in the flow. So that's the big difference between like I go to one of these vibe coding tools and I write a prompt, and then I go grab a coffee and come back 10 minutes later hoping that it was built, and it built something that you didn't even want. Like vibe designing is different. You kind of want to see things happening in real time. So that's why we have put, there are the cursors that are now like moving around, and you can kind of see what's going on, how the model is thinking about these things. Like being very communicative towards the user is really important. When things take a little bit more time than they should be, but I'm also hoping at the same time that these models will get like so fast that it's just going to be like appearing in real time. And like one thing worth saying there is that the parallelism is a huge unlock there as well. So maybe the model is slow, but maybe if it can do multiple things at the same time, like suddenly that is actually not necessarily a blocker or impediment. It's fine that it like takes some time, but at the same time, you kind of want to work on multiple things, multiple areas of the canvas while this is working. I want to work here. Also, like, you don't have to wait for the agents to finish. You can like start poking into the design, sort of like under the hands of the agent, which is also really cool in Pencil. So you can like start reorganizing things already while it's still working, you know, which again, like is this reason where like vibe designing makes a lot of sense versus like just coding, because you can't really like touch the code while the agent is like working on things, you know. You might screw things up and it might not compile and so on. But here, because it's so separated on the canvas, you can start doing that.
I was going to say, the thing I like most about the sort of Pencil journey is that obviously you have a lot of domain knowledge in sort of the design world, because I think a lot of modern vibe coding tools, some people have sort of just thought, what if, like, can we do this instead of should we? So some people have, like, I've seen vibe designers before where it's been sort of a terrible workflow to use it, but I like your approach of always trying to help the human instead of replacing them. They're sort of the AI tools that I gravitate towards too. And I think, yeah, that's a very cool approach with Pencil.
Yeah, 100%. I've talked to a few of our users, obviously, and like they talk about this fact where like they now have this sort of a group of junior designers essentially joining them on their journey, and they can like orchestrate things way faster and way better. And previously, there'll be like a lot of crafting, like proper padding and proper margin and like the right font size and all of these things. And you would spend like countless of hours on all of these things. But in your head, the vision would be already there. You just needed to take this time, this extra time to run this marathon, essentially. But right now you can just sprint. And because you already see it, you know, you just want to materialize these things.
I was going to say, going back to what you said about parallel agents or parallel things happening at the same time, do you mean having multiple agents work on the same design, or do you mean having multiple agents work on different designs? What do you mean by parallel?
All of the above, actually. It's kind of interesting, you know. So like initially when we started looking into parallelism, it was for exploring different variations of the same design at different places of the canvas. But then I wondered, like, why can't multiple agents work on the same page? And it's actually possible. And the reason being is that if you orchestrate it really well, they can split up the work in a non-conflicting way, unlike in code, which on the canvas, you kind of can't do it. You know, they just need to have the same understanding of what you're trying to achieve. You know, they will split up the work and they will work in the different sections of the website. You know, so like one agent can work on the hero section, the other agent can work on like the mid section, and the third agent can work on like a footer or something like that. And then you can run like multiple agents per each page, which is something I was actually showing in that last demo that I posted on X, where you had 3 pages and 2 agents per each page, basically. Yeah.
I think there's a paper by Cognition that says don't run multiple agents because of the context issue. They don't all have the context of what they're trying to work on. And they gave an example saying if you were trying to build like a Super Mario game, one could work on the level and one could work on the characters, but they could have kind of different gravities because they don't have the main knowledge. And so how have you got that to work with Pencil?
Magic. Well, it was a lot of iterations, you know. You just have to like keep digging into that, and like eventually, and like honestly, we just scratched the surface. I think we just showed like the direction of where things could be going, and honestly, like there's so much to be done. Also, in terms of like how you work with that shared context, optimizations around that, again, like going back to speed and token usage and all of these things. Like there's so much that can be done. And like we barely just scratched the surface, really. Like, there's so much exciting stuff ahead of us. You can have different roles, like you kind of mentioned. You can have agents work. I think like one exciting thing for me is definitely like having the same role versus like different roles, because like usually when people talk about teams of agents, they would have like different roles, and that's cool in a way, but they're ultimately doing like different things and they're waiting for each other. Like the parallelism I'm like really excited about is that these agents are not waiting for each other. They're like truly working in parallel, just like GPU essentially.
So considering there are so many tools out there, so many models, so many agent harnesses, when you're working with Pencil, what tools do you use, and how do you go about back and forth between the agent and the tool?
And you mean like what kind of tools, like specifically in Pencil, or?
So both. So specifically in Pencil, or do you use Codex? Do you use Claude Code? Do you use I don't know, Gemini? What do you use?
All of the above. Like there was also like a big surprising moment for me when we launched Pencil, like how many different combinations people want to use it with. And like immediately our Discord blew up and everybody was asking like, can I use it with like this model blah that I never heard about, before? And can I use it with this agent harness and this CLI and this and that? And like, I was just like surprised how vast this world already is today. And like, we're really just at the beginning of it. And we'll see all sorts of different combinations. I think it's going to be, right now in Pencil, you can run one frame in Codex, another one in Opus, third one with Gemini, etc., etc., etc. It's kind of incredible, actually. You can run all of these models at the same time. You can compare and contrast the results. They can collaborate with each other, and so on. So it's kind of interesting.
Curious how you benchmark the models yourself internally for their design capabilities. If you do that, do you have a sort of system set up so every time there's a new model release, you can sort of check it for if it's been a great improvement?
Yeah, I mean, that's sure, there is like some automated way, but there is obviously like a lot of manual work involved in that, just because we are like so early in this thing. Like when the models come out, like the first thing I'm like always excited about is like, okay, let's see what is there. And sometimes it's just like nuance you can't really put in words, but you see it and you're like, there's just a tad bit more detail. Like going from Opus 4.5 to Opus 4.6, I can't even describe it. Like people ask me like, so what's the difference? I wish I could tell you, but like when you try it, you can see it. There's like a little bit more detail here and there, and suddenly it just makes a lot more sense. And I think that's going to be this iteration that we're going to be going through as we go to maybe Opus 5 and so on. There's also now new image models coming out, obviously. There's again like a little bit more detail, but like you can't really put it in words. It's just like once you see it, you know it.
So at the moment, if I wanted to get some designs for a website, what I could do is I could go to Nano Banana Pro 2 or whatever, and then it could design me some websites. And then I guess from there, is there a way to take that design into Pencil and then design that, or is it best just to start from scratch in Pencil?
100%. And in fact, like what you can actually do is, so first of all, like you can drag an open image into chat in Pencil. You can drag multiple images there. You can also drag images and like MD files or text files with your own set of rules or guidelines for it. And that's what like a lot of people are now essentially building around it. It's like a set of rules plus libraries plus images to get the results they want. You can also take an image of a fruit or a flower and use it as a sort of like vibe image. That's how we like came up with a bunch of our style guides. Was also like, let's just use some kind of vibe image, like of a flower or something, and let's see like what color palette is gonna get extracted from that by the model. And I think we'll just like generally see a lot of that more and more of that like exploration and combination, because like just like human, you walk outside, you maybe go into mountains or woods or by the sea and or just walk in the street and you see some inspiration and you get inspired and you're like, aha, this is what I would like. But like in your head, when you were like manually designing before, you wouldn't obviously even like take a picture of it. You would just like take a mental snapshot of that into your head, go back home to your computer and like start designing, and it would be influenced by something you have seen during the day. But now you can just pass it to the AI and let's see what comes out of that.
Is it also capable of designing some crazy SVG animations or something if you prompt it with, I don't know, with an SVG asset or an image?
SVGs not necessarily just yet, but I have seen some SVG models that recently came out. This is like really interesting what's happening on that front. And also, I think animation is also like a big next frontier. There is like Remotion, right? And Lottie and all of these things. And Replit just came out with animation, right? So I think there's going to be this is just like the next big unopened frontier. They just barely scratched the surface again. It's like, it's nice, but it's still not like After Effects level, like a pro level person kind of designer doing like amazing like animation with it. But I think there's a lot of potential in that space as well.
I saw the new SVG model and it looked very cool from the demo because, I think current models do struggle a bit with SVGs. They're getting better and better, but that specific SVG model was incredible compared to what's currently possible.
It touches on this like very interesting topic, which I think we are getting to the point where like layout is looking pretty okay. But like we know that websites are not just like good layout, right? It's this emotion that you get from it, and that could be reinforced by an illustration, by breaking the text into like very bold, and then like maybe like these subtitles and so on. Like it's a composition of text in like this interesting or funky way. Maybe there's a video that's moving, but it's sort of like this feeler only. It's not necessarily like it's like abstract or like abstract image that's like moving a little bit, or like things that like slide or move with scrolling and so on. So yeah, I think those are the things that are very likely start to make it into vibe designing as well, especially on the illustration side, because then you can like, what about 3D? Like a lot of these websites now have like these renditions of like, there's like cubes, and they kind of like show the structure of like, I don't know, maybe like some websites that are trying to explain like how bytes come together into like packages and so on. Like we have probably seen like a bunch of these websites, and that's like the next missing thing, because like right now, sure, like Nano Banana or like these image generators generate like great photos. But like, what about illustrations? And I think illustrations are going to be a huge thing in the next half of 2026.
No, I'm excited for that because I've struggled with illustrations in the past. I've never been great at designing illustrations with Adobe tools and stuff. So it'd be nice to be able to prompt it.
Great point, by the way. I think a lot of us can appreciate what good design feels like. We can even see it in our head. It's just that there's this gap between us and computer to materialize it. And like what excites me a lot is to just see more and more of these tools helping to close that gap between you and your vision.
Do you still think sort of the human touch is the fact that if we trust AI to do the design entirely, everything's going to look quite generic? But do you think that human touch is, as you said, getting the inspiration as a human from somewhere outside in the world and coming with your idea and actually steering the AI in that direction? Is that sort of why you still need a human designer essentially in the future?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great products that we use on a daily basis have that like taste element that's undeniable. And it's really important because I think what we will be getting from AI on the code side and also on the design side is this like cookie cutter result, you know, and it's going to be improving. It's going to look even better and better and better, of course, but it still might be missing that like last touch of someone. And I think that's going to be still really important. And that last touch might not be even like last touch. It might be like a process in between and actually a lot of iterations where you stay in the loop. It's just that things like parallelism and these like vibe designing tools and vibe coding tools will just allow you to get there faster, you know. So like the amount of reps you do will allow you to produce things and not even faster, but like ultimately better. And if you look at the internet today, not everything looks amazing. And my hope is that we're just gonna like elevate the overall user experience all over the place, everywhere, just like by an order of magnitude. So that's really my hope for like at least like the future, as far as I can see. Like that's probably like the next frontier. What comes after that? Like who knows? We're still discovering a lot of these things, frankly, on like daily basis these days.
Would you have any advice for sort of a junior designer going into the role on sort of how they can keep up in this world?
Yeah, I think Mark Andreessen actually described this like really well. I'm just gonna like go back a couple more steps and then we're gonna answer your question, you know. But like he described it as this like Mexican standoff where like PM is pointing to a designer and engineer to designer and PM, and everybody thinks they can be the other person. And I was thinking like, so historically you would go to a school and study design for like 4 or 5 years. You would go to an engineering school and you would study engineering for 4 or 5 years. And as a PM, maybe you went to business school or you went to some of these things, you know, and you just really were like obsessed about building things and trying to figure out like the user behavior and so on. But like, I'm actually honestly asking myself, what is like Gen Z and like Gen Alpha gonna think about when they're gonna be picking up like their school or profession? Like that's for me like the biggest question. Because like I think everybody is now becoming a maker, essentially, or builder, and we don't think about ourselves as necessarily, or at least that's my hypothesis, you know, as like I'm just an engineer, I'm just a designer. Like this new gen, you know, I'm not talking about like the current gen, you know, but like the new gen of folks. What I think we'll see more and more is like problem solvers. I have a problem that I want to tackle, and I will just pick up the tools that I want. I've always operated with this mindset, and this mindset with me was really started with Flash, you know, back to that story. Because like Flash was really the first tool that allowed you to be a designer and an engineer in like one environment. And it was really magical. Obviously, it didn't scale. It broke on many levels later on when like new frameworks came out and so on. But I think what I always dreamed about, there was going to be a comeback of something like that, where people who just have a vision will pick up whatever tools necessary to realize it. And vibe coding to me, and like vibe designing and vibe coding to me, is the closest thing to Flash I have seen in like 2 decades, essentially.
I wanted to ask about your style guides. How do you manage those and how do you build those? Because like with design, we know that each year Pantone comes up with like, oh, this is the color of the year, or they're like design trends that, you know, everyone uses at this moment. So do you imagine like Pencil being also updated as these trends evolve and change?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we just updated our style guides with the latest release, and we're always like refreshing them. But I never thought about our style guides as like, this is it. I always thought about it as like, this is just a little bit to give you an idea what you can achieve here. Also, really fix that cold start problem of blank canvas, and like, I don't know how to use the tool. So that was really the point here. But our goal is to actually document it and open it up so people can make their own and contribute and start sharing these across the community. I was never like in a position where I would be like, we want to be the tastemakers or whatever. Not at all. Merely an inspiration for others to build on top and get inspired. Myself, and back to Flash, actually, when I started working with Flash, I studied tons of Flash files, how people build different things. And that was for me the source of inspiration on how, first of all, like how to create these things, but also like all these like intricacies in there and so on. So I think I'm just hoping that our style guides are just merely that, an inspiration for others to build on and remix and change and make them their own.
I was going to say, it seems like other companies are figuring out what Pencil's done. So I know Sketch have got the MCP server or tools, and so there's Figma. Figma also have their own MCP tools. How are you going to differentiate or stay ahead of the curve and not let people like those other companies take your market share?
Well, I think you just have to, like, it's an interesting question, but like, how do you differentiate between like Cursor and Copilot? Maybe like, I'm gonna ping it back at you, so like there is a nuance, right? There's a difference. Like, can we put it in words? Probably, if we like dug deeper, but like there's a major difference, obviously. So I'm just hoping that we can keep that stay ahead of the curve, essentially, there. And like I said multiple times here, there's just so much to be done, and I just want to make sure that we're like front running that innovation on the Pencil side.
So Pencil, for it to be made, you went through, I think, a program. Is it A16Z Speedrun?
Yeah, I would recommend it for everyone to consider it. So there's obviously YC and Speedrun. Those are like the most famous ones, I would say. But there is like many accelerator programs around the world. Speedrun was a great experience for me because multiple things. So during COVID, everybody sort of like hunkered down and like didn't get out much, right? And I think Speedrun was a great opportunity for me to like reconnect with fellow founders again on like regular basis. So and this amount of energy is like underrated, I think. I think everybody should go through that and just like spend time in like a tight group of people who have like a same vision to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. And so that was like number one. Number two, I would say it like really shapes you as a founder in a really positive way. Like, first of all, like the great support from the Andreessen Horowitz team there is just undeniable. But like the other thing is, and you can like basically discuss like tons of things with them, and they have like great experience because they have seen so much. So they have this like great instinct about like what might work, what might not work, and they're just great advisors. But also there's this moment where you have to present at a demo day in front of like 1,000 investors. And this year, we were like Speedrun number 5. It was in Yerba Buena Center of Arts in San Francisco. It's this place where like Steve Jobs announced iPad, and and other Apple products, and like you are now standing on the stage. There's some magical energy there. Like it's insane, and I can tell you, like, I think everybody should go through it. Like, this is such a great experience, and it will force you to really sharpen your pitch. You have just 2 minutes to present. And I can tell you, like, talking for an hour about Pencil, easy. Talking about Pencil in 2 minutes, incredibly hard, especially if you're standing on a stage where you are blinded by the lights when you come there, because like you're coming from like this backstage sort of like dark, super dark place, there's like no lights, nothing, and suddenly you get on the stage, super bright light shines on you, and like you have to start talking about whatever you're building in like very excited way, and it just has to keep coming like this. So I went through like bunch of rehearsals for that, obviously, but like overall, I think for everybody there, it was such an amazing experience to just like get out and like really pull the best out of you.
Yeah, I always think people who are in California or San Francisco have an unfair advantage because you're in the hub of technology, and you kind of feel the kind of power of AI and like all the tech hubs and stuff. Is that, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I used to live in SF for many, many years. I don't live there right now. I'm like dozing in myself because there's also like, frankly, it's great energy. There's also some noise related with that, So I think it's at least like for me, that's the balance that I found, is to just like go there on regular basis, but don't necessarily be there like on daily basis. It also like inspires me in a new way every single time I go there. So that's what I found working for me. But I spent a decade there, so like I know like every bit and piece of the city. But yeah, it definitely is some unfair advantage. And you can talk to anyone like who flies to SF, how they come back from the trip always like incredibly re-energized. And so yeah, I mean, it was like one thing I would do is like just pack your bag and like fly to SF and just like meet people and talk to them and just like, jam on things.
Is Pencil.dev, is there a team or is it just you at the moment on Pencil.dev?
We're like 10 people right now. Yeah. So, and yeah, it's a great team of folks. We've known each other for some time. So yeah, it's actually a really complex product if you really think about it. So it definitely needs more than me now. So yeah.
Are these people that you met during your time working for Adobe or the startup you had, or are these people that you've known from the Speedrun?
Some folks are from like the previous startup we worked on, and yeah, some folks are new. So it's a mix of people. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And speaking of the previous startup, are you allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, like one of them was called Around, for instance, and it was like a video conferencing app. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It was. Have you guys seen it?
Isn't that the one we used until it?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did use it. Yeah.
Oh, you used it. Okay,
we used to like it a
amazing.
lot. We were very sad when it went.
Yeah. So, what was your impression of the tool? If you don't mind sharing. I'm kind of curious actually.
It just felt a bit more sort of fun and a better experience than like Google Workspace or Slack and things like that. It just, yeah, I don't know. It felt like it did exactly what it was designed to do with some cool features in it.
It was always like our intention was to just make it like a little bit more fun, especially like during COVID times. Like I feel like everybody was trying to make like HD video and 4K video and larger and larger and larger. And we were like, let's think different here. What if we made like small circles and put them on the desktop and actually made other people see less of you in a way? So we put these filters there and so on. And it made everybody suddenly feel more comfortable in all the team discussions. And I think that was like a big factor of that, and I think with all of the products I worked on, I'm trying to always find this like little edge that's just like completely different from everybody else. And it's always like seeking that versus like, oh, somebody built this, let me try to redo it, remake it or copy it or whatever. I think it's really important to find like that new thing that you feel passionate about, because ultimately this is a marathon, and you have to be personally like excited about building this thing, and with Pencil, like when I saw these cursors flying on the canvas for the first time, I was like, this is it. It's amazing. Like I couldn't stop watching it. I was mesmerized by it, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't wait to share this with everybody else. So it's these little things, and it started like initially we had this like animation that would like scan the things, we didn't have to do it. Like we could just rat the JSON, and that's it. But the fact that it like scanned the frame, I was like, wow, this is like, you're feeling it. You're feeling the AI. So, and I'm sort of like hoping that, like a lot of people have been talking about this a lot, like the chat being the main interface for AI. I'm starting to feel like we're now discovering these like new user experiences for interacting with AI that were never seen before, and these cursors and scanning and all of these things are like just the tip of the iceberg, and we'll see a lot more of that, just like guiding you visually throughout your creation. Like it really makes it feel like that AI isn't just some like LLM text chat, but like something behind it, something creative behind it. I don't know, like I can't really find the right word for it right now, but it's starting to feel like that.
I think that's especially true that sort of chat is a bad interface for things that are creative, like designing and all of that. It's really hard to get into a prompt sort of what you want to see on the page.
Yeah. And I think if we want more people in the world to use AI, we'll have to figure out better interfaces for that. And sure, like voice could be like one of them, but like, I don't know, like how many times do you guys use voice to interact with AI? Like rarely, so I think we'll have to find some new interfaces for that as well.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that on and off, and I think if there's a way that the AI could listen to what I'm thinking, because sometimes I don't want to talk, I don't want to type, but I just want it to understand what I'm thinking and just do it. I don't know if that's Neuralink or whatever, but if there's a way to do that would be a cool interface.
Yeah, you should actually consider inviting a good friend of mine to this podcast, Jakub Zegzulka. He's a well-known tree designer, this like up-and-coming designer, and he just recently posted a video of his latest prototype. He's doing eye tracking on iPhone, and he's basically just looking at different things on the screen, and just talks like what should happen with that. He doesn't have to describe like this image on the left. He just looks at the image and says like, change it to something. And the AI knows what he's looking at. So these are the kind of interfaces that like are going to open like so many new things, because like if the AI knows what's on top of your mind, and like the eyesight and the direction of like where you're looking is like one of these clues, and hopefully we'll find a lot more of these clues, then it's just going to feel a lot more natural. Just like you were standing here next to me in my room, and I wouldn't have to like tell you, look at this, and like specifically point to that thing. You would already know that just from like the context of the setting.
That is super cool. I was just gonna say, I am actually one of those people who use voice a lot, because sometimes I'm just tired of typing. I just want to talk to the AI. So if I can talk to it and it knows where my eyes are, that's a cool product. I like that.
Yeah, or even like imagine that it could track a hand and you can like point at things on display, or like do this, like sometimes, how you're in a car and you just say like go here, and you don't say like right, you don't say left, just like turn here. And like I wish I could like tell the AI, in the car, or like autonomous driver, like turn here, and like the people in the car with you, they would know. The AI has no idea. You would have to be like, turn right on this intersection. I'm like, oh my gosh, who's gonna say that? So it's just too mouthful. So yeah.
Do you have any hot takes on design or AI or the tech industry in general?
It's such a loaded question. Although, like, it's very simple.
We ask every guest.
We need the clip, we've got to get the clip.
Yeah. What's a hot take? Well, I think honestly, like this past thing we've been just discussing is pretty hot take. That I'm just hoping that we're gonna uncover these new interfaces for interacting with AI that are gonna feel more humane, more natural, and the AI will just know from the world context, from your own context, from your point of view, from your focal point, what you actually had in mind. So you don't have to like handheld it so much, just you have to do today, and going back to my initial idea of like, I just wanted to draw something versus like describe it with words, it's the exact same thing. Like for me, it's oftentimes easier to draw something or to point at something than describe it with words. So I think this is like sort of like the next immediate step that is going to start changing in the AI. Also, like if you think about like ChatGPT like a few years back, like you would have to like really ask these like long questions and prompts. Right now, you just ask something small and like does the whole analysis of things and gives you like 20 options and so on. It just like keeps going. It like kind of knows where you're like going, and maybe it's informed by like other chats people had there, and it cached some of these like thoughts and answers and so on, you know. So yeah, I think that's also like the other thing, that like a lot of the times the, you know, like a new LLM prompt is like a start of the new world. Like it starts from scratch. Like I'm hoping that we'll see a lot more of that, like shared memory, and like having, I think the big difference is like LLM, please summarize this, and like LLM being a colleague on your Slack, having all the context of like all the conversations that happen there, and doesn't have to like dig it out every single time to like think about it, because it kind of feels stupid. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot more of that.
I was going to actually say, going back to around, we really miss our sound effects in the mini game we would play at the end of the call. It's like
Yeah,
our biggest loss was sound effects. We loved them.
Yeah, totally. And also, like, it wouldn't be cool if we could just play the game right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bomberman.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was our favorite.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
It was fun times. I think we use Slack now. We use Slack huddles, and it's not the same.
Yeah, it blows my mind it doesn't have a record feature, Slack. Like, just let me record the call. It seems so simple. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are you allowed to talk about what happened to Around?
Yeah, Around got acquired by Miro and got fully integrated into the Miro whiteboarding experience, you know, so it's there.
Okay, fine. So it still exists, but you have to use Miro for it. Thanks for your time, Tom. Is there anything that you want to plug, and anything you're working on other than Pencil that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, like, go check out Pencil. And I'm here for everybody, you know, and all the users that tried out. Join our Discord. People share a lot of interesting insights, you know, using Pencil, and also screenshots and files of what they created. It's a pretty vibrant community of thousands of people at this point. And also feel free to DM me either on X or Discord if you have if you run into any issues, or you have any questions or feature requests. You know, just want to make sure that, like, you know, that I'm like here for you.
Nice. A feature request I have is custom UI kits, because sometimes I want to make my own UI kit without using ShadCN.
Totally makes ton of sense.
Thank you for listening to the Better Slack podcast. Find us wherever you listen to podcasts, so Apple, Spotify. Give us a like or subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. And from me, it's a goodbye.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me. Thanks everyone for listening. Really enjoyed it.